Hey guys, tonight we slip far, far back in time to a moment when the Earth itself was young, restless, and glowing with fire. Imagine molten rock still steaming, oceans just beginning to spread their restless waves, and an atmosphere thick with gases you would never want to breathe. You drift across this newborn world, watching lightning crack above dark waters, striking chemical soups rich with carbon and nitrogen. These sparks shuffle atoms into new patterns, and slowly, clumsily, the building blocks of life appear. Now here's a cheeky reminder. If you were actually here, you probably wouldn't survive this. Between the toxic air, the heat, and the occasional asteroid crashing in, your sleep schedule would be the least of your worries. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're awake enough, let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You float above ancient seas that glisten with dissolved minerals. For millions of years, chemistry is busy rehearsing, forming amino acids, fatty bubbles, and strands of molecules that can copy themselves. It's like watching countless dice rolls in slow motion. Most combinations fail, but occasionally one works. Some scientists call this mixture a primordial soup, while others imagine deep-sea vents belching warmth and minerals into the ocean, where heat and chemistry dance together. Which one was it? Scientists still wonder whether life's spark began in shallow pools struck by storms or in the dark bellies of hydrothermal vents. The planet itself seems eager to experiment. Volcanoes erupt, adding new ingredients to the oceans. Comets crash into Earth, delivering carbon compounds from space, as if the wider cosmos wanted to join in. And yet, there is no plan here, just countless accidents of chemistry, most vanishing without trace. But then comes something quirky. Fatty molecules have a habit of gathering into bubbles. They trap water and other molecules inside, forming fragile capsules. They aren't alive, not yet, but they're a step closer, nature practicing how to wrap a fragile secret in a protective shell. Inside one of these primitive bubbles, you see a strand of RNA quietly copying itself. It doesn't think, it doesn't choose, but it endures. That endurance is the very first form of memory on Earth, the ability to carry information forward in time, to preserve a pattern that can be repeated. Without that persistence, life could never have taken root. You hover over this alien landscape and can't help but wonder, was this inevitable? Given enough time and the right mix of chemistry, would molecules always stumble their way into biology? Or is this moment a one-in-a-trillion accident so fragile that the slightest change could have erased the possibility of life forever? The question hangs unanswered, stretching across billions of years and countless galaxies. The quirky detail is how familiar some of this chemistry feels. Those tiny bubbles act like prototypes of cells, protecting what is inside from the chaos outside. The strands of RNA behave like scribes, repeating their instructions again and again, even as the fragile shells around them break apart. The ocean becomes a stage for billions of auditions, almost all failures, yet a few promising enough to keep the story going. Time stretches endlessly, millions of years sliding past with no urgency. Lightning storms continue to strike, sunlight cracks molecules, heat from the seafloor vents stitches others back together. Most attempts vanish, but every so often a lucky arrangement holds together, replicates, and persists. That persistence is the seed of life, and so you find yourself watching the very first rehearsal of biology. A world once silent now hums faintly with possibility. No creatures swim, no forests wave, no voices call, just patterns hidden in water, preparing for futures they cannot imagine. From chaos, order has begun to whisper. From stillness, the first steps toward life are underway, and in that whisper lies everything that will come. Forests, whales, cities, and even you, listening now. You drift forward through time, still gliding above the restless oceans. The chemical rehearsals you witnessed earlier have now given way to something sturdier. Out of fragile bubbles, a few lucky ones have stabilized, forming protective walls that can hold their contents securely. These are the first true cells, and with them, life has officially begun its long story. They are impossibly small, invisible to the naked eye, yet inside each one is a miniature factory. Simple strands of RNA, later DNA, direct the flow of reactions. Proteins fold into shapes that can cut, build, and repair. Fatty membranes regulate what enters and leaves, like doormen standing guard at a microscopic gate. It isn't consciousness, but it is order, and order is the first step toward persistence. The quirky thing about these cells is their toughness. Even without the complex machinery of modern organisms, they endure environments that would destroy almost anything else. Some thrive near boiling vents, others in acidic pools, still others in deep, dark sediments. Their resilience is astonishing, and echoes of it still exist today in extremophiles, microbes that laugh at temperatures, pressures, and toxins that would kill you instantly. Scientists still debate how exactly the first cells came together. Did RNA rule alone at first, a world where strands of information also doubled as workers? Or did proteins and membranes emerge in parallel, creating a partnership that strengthened survival? The fossil record is nearly silent here, leaving more questions than answers. But even in silence, the evidence of their success is written all around you. Every living being is their descendant. Billions of years pass, and the oceans fill with these tiny pioneers. They divide, replicate, spread across currents. Each one is fragile, but in their numbers they are unstoppable. The Earth, once a stage for chemistry alone, now belongs to biology. As you drift through this microbial sea, you begin to realize that the planet itself is changing because of them. Each division, each breath, each tiny cycle of metabolism alters the environment. Some cells release methane, adding new gases to the air. Others feast on minerals near the seafloor, pulling elements into their chemistry and leaving behind new compounds. The oceans, once a passive soup, are becoming an active system reshaped by invisible architects. For 1 billion years or more, these single-celled pioneers dominate every corner of the water. They cling to rocks. They float with the currents. They lurk in shadows where light never reaches. Without eyes, they sense chemical gradients. Without mouths, they feed and grow. They are small, but they are rulers, holding their throne longer than any empire to follow. The quirky truth is that you yourself are built on their blueprint. Every cell in your body, from skin to muscle to brain, carries echoes of these ancient designs. The way your DNA is stored, the way your membranes regulate, the way your energy is generated, all of it is an inheritance from these earliest survivors. You are, in a deep sense, a walking cathedral of ancient cells. And scientists still puzzle over one grand question. Did all life descend from one lucky ancestor, the so-called last universal common ancestor? Or were there multiple lineages, different experiments in survival, that eventually mingled before one dominated? The answer remains hidden in fragments of ancient molecules, a mystery whispered by genetics and geology alike. For now, you hover above a kingdom too small to see, but vast in consequence. The world has crossed its first great threshold, from chemistry to biology, from randomness to replication. And in these tiny beings, the blueprint for everything to come is already set in motion. You drift forward through time once more, watching the microbial seas change their character. For millions of years, cells have survived on chemical gradients, drawing energy from minerals and gases. But now, some of them stumble upon a trick so radical that it transforms not only their lives but the entire planet. They discover how to capture sunlight. Picture a tiny cell floating near the ocean's surface, pigments spread across its membrane. When sunlight strikes, those pigments shuffle electrons, harnessing energy that would otherwise vanish as heat. The cell uses that energy to turn carbon dioxide and water into sugars, packets of stored fuel. This quiet innovation is photosynthesis, and it gives the cell independence. No longer must it depend entirely on the chemical scraps around it. It can eat sunlight directly. The quirky part is that photosynthesis also produces oxygen, a waste product to the cell, but a gas that will eventually alter the entire Earth. At first, oxygen exists only in tiny whispers, dissolved in shallow pools. But over millions of years, those whispers grow into a chorus, saturating the seas and eventually spilling into the air. You float above mats of cyanobacteria, green carpets spreading across tidal flats and shallow bays. Layer upon layer, they build stony domes called stromatolites, still found today in places like Shark Bay, Australia. If you lean close, you could almost hear the crackle of oxygen bubbles escaping into the water. They work slowly, almost lazily, but with unmatched persistence. Over time, their patient exhalations change the chemistry of the world. Scientists still argue about how quickly this transformation unfolded. Did oxygen rise steadily, or in bursts, with long pauses in between? The rocks tell conflicting stories. Some layers show sudden spikes, others slow climbs. But whatever the pace, the outcome is clear. The Earth is being remade. As oxygen trickles into the oceans, it reacts with dissolved iron, staining the waters red and sinking to the seafloor as rust. Over countless ages, these chemical reactions build massive bands of iron ore, layers of rock that humans will one day dig from the earth to forge tools and cities. Even stone now bears witness to the quiet labour of microbes. But oxygen is not a gentle gift. For many of the early cells, it is poison. Its reactivity corrodes fragile molecules, breaking apart the chemistry that had once sustained them. Whole lineages vanish in this invisible storm, and yet others adapt. They develop enzymes to detoxify oxygen, and eventually to use its fiery potential as fuel. What began as waste becomes the most powerful energy source life has ever known. The quirky twist is that oxygen may have pushed life toward complexity. With more energy available per breath, cells could afford new machinery, sturdier structures, and eventually cooperation. Without oxygen's abundance, it is possible that complex animals like whales, birds, and even you might never have existed. Scientists still debate the rhythm of this great oxidation event. Was it triggered mainly by the relentless work of cyanobacteria, or did tectonic shifts and volcanic gases play equal roles? The evidence lies in ancient rocks, but the details remain a puzzle. What is certain is that by about 2.4 billion years ago, the Earth's atmosphere was no longer the same. From your vantage point, you watch cyanobacteria drifting calmly, oblivious to their planetary revolution. They simply divide, feed, and float, never aware that their waste gas will one day fill human lungs. The sky itself is changing, and with it, the stage is set for larger, more energetic creatures to appear. Life has not only survived, it has transformed the very air. You drift forward, and the oxygen-filled world you just left begins to tremble under a different kind of transformation. The sky is clear, the atmosphere thins of greenhouse gases, and gradually the warmth of the sun slips away. Ice creeps down from the poles, advancing inch by inch until it blankets the equator itself. Earth becomes a snowball. Imagine standing on a shoreline in this age. The sea before you is frozen, stretching out as a glittering plain of white. Mountains groan beneath the weight of glaciers. Valleys fill with grinding rivers of ice. Even the tropics shiver under frost. For millions of years the planet lies entombed, locked in a silence that feels eternal. At first glance it seems like a death sentence for life. Without sunlight reaching the oceans, how could photosynthetic microbes survive? Without open water, how could chemistry continue? And yet, life endures. Beneath the ice, in cracks where thin beams of light filter down, cyanobacteria cling to survival. At the seafloor, hydrothermal vents continue to exhale heat and minerals, creating havens where communities of microbes flourish. Life is bent to its limits, but it does not break. The quirky fact is that this glaciation may have happened more than once. Geological evidence suggests at least 2, perhaps 3, great global freezes. Each time life retreated into small refuges, only to expand again when the ice melted. It is almost as if the Earth was testing life's endurance, pushing it to the brink, then giving it another chance. Scientists still puzzle over what caused these deep freezes. Was it the rise of oxygen stripping greenhouse gases from the air? Was it the slow drift of continents altering ocean currents? Or was it simply a combination of forces conspiring together to tip the planet into ice? The answers remain partly hidden in ancient rock, but the effects are clear. Earth has been transformed into a world of white. Over millions of years, volcanic forces deep beneath the ice continue their patient work. Eruptions release carbon dioxide into the air, but with oceans sealed beneath frozen lids, the gas cannot dissolve and vanish. Slowly, invisibly, the atmosphere thickens. The greenhouse effect strengthens until at last the ice begins to retreat. What started as cracks grows into torrents of meltwater, rivers surging across the land, oceans breaking free from their frozen prison. From above, you watch glaciers collapse into valleys, flooding the world with new energy. the sudden melt releases nutrients ground from stone, fertilizing oceans with a feast for microbes. Populations bloom in explosions of color and activity. What once seemed like extinction becomes transformation. The survivors, hardened by crisis, expand into every available niche. The quirky twist is that these harsh freezes may have paved the way for multicellularity. Some scientists believe that surviving such extremes forced cells to cooperate more closely, giving rise to colonies and eventually complex bodies. In this view, the cold did not halt evolution, it sharpened it, like a blade against stone. Yet mysteries remain. Did the Earth thaw gradually, or in dramatic pulses of warming? Were these snowball episodes global in the strictest sense, or were there refugees of open water near the equator? The debate continues, but the evidence of survival is undeniable. Life endured, and in enduring it grew stronger. As you drift above the reborn seas, you sense the stage resetting. The ice has passed, the world is green again, and the rules of life are about to change. From hardship comes resilience. From resilience comes innovation. And the next chapter will see life grow larger, stranger, and more ambitious than ever before. With the ice melted and the oceans rich in nutrients, life begins experimenting with new strategies. For billions of years, the world has belonged to single cells, independent, resilient, endlessly dividing. But now, some of them stumble on a different idea. Instead of drifting apart after division, they stay together. At first, it is just stickiness, a quirk of membranes. Yet over time, that stickiness becomes strength. You watch tiny algae form delicate chains, each cell sharing resources with its neighbors. Some colonies flatten into sheets, others fold into spheres, still others branch like tiny trees. By working together, these clusters gain advantages no single cell could achieve alone. If one cell falters, others continue the work. If some specialize, the whole colony becomes more efficient. This is the dawn of multicellularity. The quirky part is that multicellularity did not evolve only once. It appeared in several lineages, plants, fungi, animals, independently. It seems that nature, given the chance, kept rediscovering the same trick. Each attempt opened new possibilities, though many experiments ended in evolutionary dead ends. The survivors, however, shaped the future. Scientists still debate what pressures drove cells toward teamwork. Was it predators, forcing small prey to cluster into bodies too big to swallow? Was it the oxygen-rich seas, offering energy enough to power larger forms? Or was it simply accident, stickiness turned into strategy by the passage of time? Whatever the cause, the consequences are profound. From your vantage point, you can see early clusters drifting in the currents like fragile snowflakes. They look unremarkable, yet inside their cooperation lies the blueprint of forests, reefs, and even the human body. The leap from one to many has been made, and the world will never be the same. As ages pass, these colonies refine their cooperation. Some cells begin to give up certain tasks, devoting themselves to support rather than reproduction. Others specialize in capturing energy or defending the group. It is a quiet revolution. Individuality yields to teamwork, and the colony as a whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. You hover near one such cluster, and notice how division of labor begins to resemble a tiny society. A few cells carry the lineage forward, while the rest protect and sustain them. This strategy ensures survival not just for individuals but for the group. In a way, it is the first glimpse of sacrifice for the sake of something larger, a principle that will echo across evolution, from ant colonies to human civilizations. The quirky detail is that echoes of this ancient transition can still be seen today. Certain algae, like volvox, form spherical colonies, where some cells swim and others reproduce. These living fossils offer scientists a window into how cooperation first took hold, a reminder that the leap to complexity was built on many small experimental steps. Scientists still debate whether multicellularity arose gradually, with tiny incremental gains, or suddenly, as crises forced dramatic shifts. Did predators truly drive the change, or did chemical abundance open the door? Fossils give only fragments, leaving the narrative partly hidden in stone and DNA. Yet the direction is undeniable. From your vantage point, the oceans no longer look like a uniform broth of microbes. They shimmer with new shapes, fragile but daring, testing out bodies that are bigger, stranger, and more ambitious. Life has discovered the power of unity, and with it, the possibility of creatures that will one day walk, fly, and dream. You drift forward into the Cambrian seas, and suddenly the water around you erupts with motion and form. For billions of years, life crept along slowly, limited to microscopic experiments and modest colonies. But now, in a geological instant, the oceans transform into a carnival of creatures. This is the Cambrian explosion, one of the most dramatic bursts of innovation in Earth's history. Everywhere you look, new body plans appear. Trilobites scuttle across the seafloor, their armoured segments gleaming like ancient coins. Worm-like creatures wriggle through sediments, leaving trails that twist like handwriting across the sand. Spiny predators sweep the water with strange appendages, while soft-bodied animals unfold frills and fans that wave in the current. It is as if evolution has opened a toy chest and scattered every imaginable design into the sea. The quirky thing is how experimental many of these creatures appear. Some have eyes on stalks, others mouths shaped like pineapples, still others resemble leaves that have learned to crawl. Many of these designs will vanish without descendants, evolutionary dead ends preserved only in rare fossils. And yet, from this chaos of invention, the blueprints of modern animals emerge: backbones, limbs, eyes, shells. Scientists still debate what sparked this sudden flowering of life. Was it the build-up of oxygen that fueled larger, more active bodies? Was it the rise of predators, driving prey to adapt in an evolutionary arms race? Or did hidden genetic toolkits evolve, allowing bodies to be reshaped into endless variations? The answer may be a mix of all three, a perfect storm of conditions that unlocked life's creative potential. You drift higher, looking down at this riot of forms. For the first time, ecosystems take on real complexity. Tiny plankton feed filter feeders, which in turn are hunted by larger predators. Energy flows through food webs like invisible currents, linking every creature in a web of survival. The seas are no longer simple, they are alive with drama. As you move among these bustling reefs, you notice something remarkable: eyes. For the first time, animals see the world in detail. Trilobites with compound eyes scan for food and danger. Predators stalk with new precision, and prey dart to safety. The invention of vision reshapes the game of survival, giving creatures awareness of shapes, movement, and light that was impossible before. Shells and armour also spread rapidly. Soft-bodied ancestors had floated vulnerable for eons, but now shells of calcium carbonate turn the seafloor into a gallery of shields and helmets. Predators evolve claws and spines in response, sparking an evolutionary arms race that will never truly end. The oceans become both safer and deadlier at once. The quirky twist is that many Cambrian animals look alien compared to today's life, yet they are part of your own ancestry. Strange forms like hallucigenia, once reconstructed upside down, carried spines that baffled scientists for decades. Others, like Anomalocaris, a shrimp-like giant with grasping arms and a circular mouth, ruled as apex predators. Though they seem bizarre, they are your distant cousins in the grand tree of life. Scientists still puzzle over how sudden this explosion truly was. Did life diversify rapidly in just a few million years, or had hidden complexity been building long before, waiting for conditions to reveal it? Fossils like those of the Burgess Shale in Canada suggest both, a quiet prelude followed by a roaring crescendo. From your vantage point, the Cambrian seas shimmer with colour and variety. The silence of earlier ages has given way to a chorus of movement, each creature playing a role in a newly complex web of life. The Earth has discovered creativity on a grand scale, and the oceans will never again be simple. You drift forward through time and watch as the Cambrian seas continue to bustle with life. Yet even in their abundance, they remain only part of the planet. Beyond the shoreline stretches a barren landscape, rocks, sand, and wind, with barely a splash of green. For eons, land has been silent. But now, the first pioneers begin to creep from the water's edge. This is the conquest of land. It starts with simple mats of algae, spreading across damp rocks where waves crash. They cling stubbornly, anchoring themselves against the tide. Alongside them, fungi strike up strange partnerships, creating lichen that can tolerate dryness and sunlight. These unassuming alliances become the first splashes of colour on otherwise empty terrain. Gradually, more ambitious plants follow. Small moss-like forms push upward, capturing sunlight and moisture, forming the earliest carpets of green. In time, vascular tissues evolve, letting plants pump water through their bodies, allowing them to grow taller and sturdier. Once rootless mats become miniature forests, shaping soil where none existed before. The land, once bare, begins to breathe. The quirky twist is that animals are not far behind. Tiny arthropods scuttle across tidal flats, nibbling on algae and detritus. Millipedes and centipedes join later, crawling on primitive legs, some growing to impressive sizes in the oxygen-rich air. Insects appear too, buzzing clumsily through the sparse vegetation, testing out wings that will later dominate the skies. Scientists still debate exactly when these first landings occurred. Fossil spores hint at land plants over 450 million years ago, while footprints pressed into ancient mud record the wanderings of early invertebrates. The evidence is scattered, fragmentary, like the first steps of a dance. Yet the message is clear. The frontier between sea and land has been crossed. From your vantage point, you see waves still dominating most of the planet, but the edges are changing. A thin band of green outlines the continents, fragile but steady, a promise that life's reach is expanding. As these pioneers spread, they begin to alter the very surface of the continents. Their roots and filaments break down bare rock into soil, trapping moisture and nutrients. Their bodies, when they die, add organic matter that builds fertile ground. The land, once a desert of stone, now begins to host ecosystems of its own. Insects refine their wings and take to the air, becoming the first true flyers in Earth's history. Imagine dragonflies with wingspans wider than your arm, gliding silently above swampy forests that only just emerged. Centipedes grow longer, armoured millipedes thicker, all testing the new world's limits. In their wake, amphibious creatures peek from pools, ancestors of fish learning to explore land, gulping air as they wriggle awkwardly from one puddle to another. The quirky twist is that some of the earliest forests may have grown so thick and lush that they altered global climate. By pulling enormous amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, they cooled the planet and helped create conditions for new evolutionary experiments. The greenery did not just spread, it changed the rules of the Earth itself. Scientists still wonder whether the move onto land was gradual, driven by countless small pushes, or sudden bursts triggered by climate shifts. Were animals following the plants, or did they arrive independently, searching for new food sources? Fossil trails and spores whisper hints, but the exact choreography of this ancient migration remains incomplete. From above, you now see coastlines traced in green, rivers lined with moss and roots, insects flitting through humid air. Life has broken free from its aquatic cradle, daring to stand against wind and sun. The continents, once empty and silent, now stir with motion and breath. The conquest of land is complete, and the stage is set for forests, vertebrates, and eventually entire worlds of animals to follow. You drift forward into a world now lined with green, and the changes are astonishing. What began as mossy carpets and small stems has grown into towering plants, some stretching meters into the air. For the first time, forests rise on Earth, weaving canopies of shade and weaving roots into the soil. The continents no longer look barren, they ripple with life from floor to sky. These early forests are not quite like the ones you know today. Giant ferns and lycophytes dominate, their fronds arching overhead in patterns like living lace. Horsetail plants grow in thick stands, jointed stems reaching high before branching into spiky crowns. Instead of flowers and fruits, spores drift through the air, clouds of dust-like seeds settling on damp ground. The forests breathe differently, and you breathe with them. Animals find new homes here, amphibians slip between roots and pools, laying their eggs in shaded waters. Insects hum in the air, some growing to enormous sizes thanks to oxygen levels climbing higher than ever before. Dragonflies the size of hawks glide silently through the undergrowth, while millipedes longer than a human shuffle among fallen leaves. Forests are not just plants, they are engines for new ecosystems. The quirky twist is that these forests also change the climate itself. Their roots pull carbon from the atmosphere, locking it into soils and trunks. The cooling effect is global, and some scientists suggest these lush woodlands may have triggered new ice ages. In creating a home for themselves, plants may have reshaped the fate of the planet. Scientists still puzzle over exactly how far these early forests spread. Did they blanket continents in dense green, or were they patchwork pockets along rivers and swamps? Fossilized stumps and petrified wood give glimpses, but the full extent remains debated. From above, you see a planet transformed. The land is no longer bare, it is alive with towering giants, their fronds swaying in ancient breezes. Earth has entered the age of forests, and everything that follows will grow in their shadow. As forests expand, the land itself begins to change character. Thick root systems bind soils together, slowing erosion and carving stable river valleys. Fallen trunks pile into swampy lowlands, where their remains will, over millions of years, compress into coal seams that humans one day will burn to power entire civilizations. Even in death, these ancient trees shape the destiny of the planet. Creatures adapt to this new three-dimensional world. Some amphibians grow larger and stronger, prowling the forest floor with jaws wide enough to snap insects the size of birds. Reptile-like pioneers emerge, laying tougher eggs that no longer require standing water, freeing them to explore drier terrain. Insects diversify wildly, experimenting with wings, colours and behaviours, each one tied to the opportunities these forests provide. The quirky twist is that oxygen levels soar so high, perhaps over 30% of the atmosphere, that fire itself becomes a natural force. Lightning strikes can ignite vast swathes of woodland, fires roaring through fern forests far more fiercely than in modern ecosystems. Life on land must learn not only to grow, but to withstand flames. Scientists still debate how these forests influence global events. Did their carbon-locking power tip the Earth into cooler climates, contributing to mass extinctions? Or did they simply create a more dynamic balance, alternating between greenhouse warmth and icy retreats? The evidence lies in layered rocks, where shifts in carbon isotopes record forests breathing on a planetary scale. From your vantage point, you gaze across continents now cloaked in green. Broken only by winding rivers and gleaming lakes, the forests sway like oceans of fronds, and the air itself hums with the breath of plants. Earth has become a planet of wood and leaf, setting the stage for reptiles, dinosaurs, and eventually humans to flourish. You drift into a swampy Devonian landscape, humid and buzzing with insect life. For ages, vertebrates have ruled the seas, armoured fish cruising through waters while sharks sharpen their dominance. But now, some fish begin to test the edge of the world they know. They haul themselves from shallows to muddy banks, their fins thick with muscle, their bodies clumsy but determined. This is the first true vertebrate venture onto land. Picture one of these creatures, something like Tiktaalik. It props its body on stout fins, head lifted just above the surface, gulping air through primitive lungs. Its gills still work in water, but it can survive where oxygen runs thin. Its ribs are stronger, supporting its chest against gravity's pull. It is neither fish nor amphibian but a bridge, a prototype in the making. The quirky fact is that these pioneers probably came ashore not to conquer but to escape. In stagnant pools, oxygen runs low, forcing fish to gulp air. On mudflats, predators lurk, pushing some to wriggle into shallow streams or even scramble onto damp earth. What began as a desperate shuffle becomes the first awkward walk of a revolution. Scientists still debate how many times this transition happened. Did a single lineage succeed and give rise to all later amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals? Or did many groups try, with most fading into evolutionary silence? Fossils show scattered footprints and partial skeletons like pieces of an incomplete script. Yet the trajectory is unmistakable. Vertebrates are edging onto land step by fragile step. From your vantage point, you see more than just fish. You see possibility. Jaws that will bite insects under ferns, limbs that will carry bodies across soil, lungs that will one day sigh in forests and deserts alike. The shoreline is no longer a limit, it is an invitation. As time drifts forward, the shoreline becomes a testing ground. Some creatures return to the water, unable to cope with the weight of gravity or the dryness of air, but others adapt. They linger longer on land, hunting insects among roots and ferns, resting in shaded pools before crawling back out again. Step by step they learn the rhythms of two worlds. Amphibians emerge from these experiments, animals with stout limbs and lungs that let them breathe in open air. Their skins still need moisture, so they keep close to streams and swamps, laying eggs in water where their young hatch as gilled larvae. These creatures are pioneers, but they cannot yet sever their ties to the sea. Still, the continent now has vertebrate footsteps pressed into its mud. The quirky twist is that some of these amphibians grew to surprising sizes. Fossils of creatures like Ichthyostega suggest bodies over a metre long, with sturdy limbs and broad skulls. Imagine stumbling across one under a Devonian fern, its eyes blinking slowly as it gulps the thick air. Awkward by modern standards, it was nevertheless a milestone, a predator stalking land, not just sea. Scientists still wonder how fast this transition unfolded. Was it a slow dance of millions of years, with countless species blurring the line between fish and amphibian? Or was it a relatively quick shift, a burst of innovation sparked by changing climates and new pressures? The fossil record offers glimpses, but the full choreography remains elusive. From your vantage point, you watch these first walkers spread across wetlands, their bodies wobbling yet persistent. The land, once ruled only by plants and invertebrates, now hums with the sound of vertebrates breathing air. The great journey that began in the ocean has claimed a new frontier, and the story of animals on land has truly begun. You drift forward into the Triassic world, more than 230 million years ago. The swamps and fern forests are still here, but the amphibians that once ruled them are losing their dominance. Their thin skins tie them to water, their eggs dry out too easily, and droughts expose their weakness. Out of their shadow, a tougher lineage rises: reptiles. Reptiles bring with them a set of clever innovations. Their scaly skin locks in moisture, letting them travel far from rivers and swamps. Their eggs, wrapped in protective shells, can develop safely on land without drying out. Their lungs are more efficient, their bodies sturdier. Where amphibians hug the shallows, reptiles march boldly into deserts, plains and forests. You watch the first wave of reptilian diversity spread across the continents. Crocodile-like hunters lurk in rivers, snapping at anything that moves. Stocky herbivores grind tough plants with leaf-shaped teeth. Small, upright reptiles dart quickly across open ground, balancing on two legs, their tails stretched out like counterweights. These nimble forms are the ancestors of dinosaurs, still modest in size but already equipped with agility and endurance. The quirky fact is that early dinosaurs were far from the towering giants you might imagine. Many were no larger than a dog, lightweight and fast. They survived not by size but by adaptability, outrunning heavier rivals and seizing opportunities. Their posture, standing tall on straight legs instead of sprawling like lizards, gave them a crucial edge in speed and stamina. Scientists still debate why dinosaurs succeeded where other reptiles faltered. Was it their efficient breathing, aided by air sacs like those in modern birds? Was it their quick growth rates, or sheer good fortune during environmental upheavals? Whatever the reason, their small beginnings set the stage for a dynasty that would dominate the planet for over 150 million years. From above, you now see a land transformed. Amphibians shrink into the background, while reptiles stride across every landscape. The age of reptiles has begun, and Earth will never look the same again. As time passes, reptiles expand into every available niche. Some take to the skies as pterosaurs, wings stretched from elongated fingers, gliding on rising air currents. Others dive back into the oceans as ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs, reshaping themselves into streamlined hunters that breathe air but swim like fish. On land, armoured reptiles with plates and spikes lumber slowly, while swift predators sharpen claws and teeth to test new hunting strategies. The quirky twist is that mammals too are already present, but they are tiny, furtive, and easy to overlook. Small shrew-like creatures scurry under ferns, active mostly at night to avoid reptilian hunters. They nurse their young, conserve heat with fur, and experiment with warm-blooded metabolisms. For now, they survive in the shadows, waiting for opportunities that lie far in the future. Scientists still debate whether reptiles thrived primarily because of their eggs and scales, or because mass extinctions cleared the path for them. Some argue that their physiology gave them inherent advantages over amphibians, while others suggest they were simply in the right place at the right time. Either way, their dominance reshaped the planet. From your vantage point, you see continents teeming with reptiles of every form, skittering, soaring, swimming. They are bold, experimental, and unafraid of new environments. Earth has entered the age of reptiles fully, and for millions of years to come, their shadows will stretch across plains, forests and seas. The amphibians may have taken the first steps onto land, but it is reptiles who now claim the throne. You drift into the Cretaceous world, where dinosaurs roam confidently and reptiles rule the land, seas and skies. Yet beneath their feet and between their shadows, a quieter revolution is unfolding. Plants, long reliant on spores and cones, unveil a dazzling innovation, the flower. At first they are modest, small blossoms tucked among leaves, pale in colour, simple in form, but even these early flowers carry something extraordinary. They use petals and scents to draw animals into their lives. Insects, already buzzing across the forests, find themselves tempted by nectar, dusted with pollen that they carry unknowingly to the next bloom. Pollination, once a game of chance, now becomes a partnership. The quirky twist is that flowers did not just appear once. They radiated into countless forms, experimenting with shapes and colours. Some developed deep tubes that demanded long-tongued pollinators, while others opened wide to welcome beetles and flies. This diversity set the stage for entire ecosystems built around attraction, reward, and exchange. Scientists still debate when exactly flowers first bloomed. Pollen fossils suggest more than 130 million years ago, but the details are murky. Was there a single ancestor that gave rise to all flowering plants, or did multiple lineages experiment with blossoms independently? The record remains tantalizing but incomplete, like missing pages of a book. From your vantage point, you see meadows tinged with colour, forests brightened with blossoms. Dinosaurs pluck fruits and leaves, dispersing seeds across wide distances. Birds and insects refine their roles, weaving tighter bonds with plants. What began as a quiet bloom has become a revolution, reshaping landscapes into mosaics of colour and scent. As the world fills with blossoms, animals respond in kind. Insects evolve alongside flowers, their bodies shaped by the needs of pollination. Bees refine their behaviour, visiting blooms with uncanny precision, carrying pollen from one to the next as if choreographing a dance. Butterflies flutter lightly through meadows, while beetles and flies take on quieter but no less important roles. Even birds and bats join in, sipping nectar, spreading life as they feed. The quirky twist is that some flowers evolve to mimic other organisms. Certain orchids, for example, deceive insects by imitating the shapes or scents of mates, tricking them into pollination. Deception, attraction, and reward intertwine in strategies as cunning as any predator's hunt. The plant world becomes not just a stage of survival, but a theatre of seduction. Scientists still wonder how quickly this floral takeover reshaped Earth. Did flowering plants slowly replace older lineages like cycads and conifers, or did they surge suddenly, overwhelming the landscape in a rapid bloom? Fossil evidence points to a mix, steady spread punctuated by bursts of dominance. What is certain is that by the end of the Cretaceous, flowering plants were everywhere, defining ecosystems in ways that remain to this day. From above, the continents now shine with colour. Fields ripple with blossoms, forests hum with pollinators, and fruits swell on branches carrying seeds far beyond their origins. The air is alive with scents and wings, the ground with roots and shoots, all tied together in a network of mutual survival. The Earth has entered a new rhythm. Flowers and their allies have reshaped not only landscapes, but also the very cycles of life. The planet is now more vibrant, more interdependent, and more fertile than ever before. You drift toward the end of the Cretaceous, when dinosaurs still thunder across the land and pterosaurs wheel above ancient seas. The world feels full, balanced, eternal. But then, in an instant of cosmic misfortune, balance is shattered. A massive asteroid slams into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, releasing energy greater than all the world's weapons combined. Firestorms race across continents, tsunamis swallow coasts, and a cloud of dust and ash chokes the sky. The reign of the dinosaurs ends in darkness. In the silence that follows, 3/4 of all species vanish. Dinosaurs, once the titans of Earth, collapse into extinction. Pterosaurs disappear, and great marine reptiles vanish beneath silent seas. Yet in the rubble and gloom, smaller survivors cling to life. Among them are mammals, tiny, shrew-like creatures that had scurried unseen through the shadows of giants. The quirky truth is that mammals had been here all along. They nursed their young with milk, conserved heat with fur, and often lived in burrows or emerged under cover of night. Their small size, adaptable diets, and secretive ways became advantages when catastrophe struck. Where towering reptiles fell, the humble mammals endured. Scientists still debate how quickly mammals seized their opportunity. Did they begin diversifying immediately after the asteroid, radiating into new forms as ecosystems lay empty? Or did recovery take millions of years, life struggling slowly before rebounding into abundance? Fossil records suggest both, a period of quiet survival followed by a burst of innovation. From your vantage point, you see the Earth hushed, forests thinned, skies pale. But in this stillness, you also glimpse possibility. The age of reptiles has ended, and in its shadow rises the age of mammals, a new chapter in the story of life. As the dust of extinction settles, mammals begin to expand into the empty niches left behind. Some remain small insect eaters, darting through undergrowth with quick, nervous movements. Others grow larger, testing new diets and habitats. Hoofed mammals appear, grazing on spreading grasslands. Some ancestors of whales return to the oceans, reshaping their limbs into flippers while still surfacing to breathe air. In forests, early primates with grasping hands and keen eyes leap from branch to branch, their curiosity foreshadowing futures yet to come. Within a few tens of millions of years, a blink compared to the long age of dinosaurs, mammals diversify into astonishing forms. Massive herbivores roam valleys, while saber-toothed predators stalk them. Bats master the night sky, using echolocation to navigate in darkness. Rodents scurry across continents, their teeth adapted to gnaw almost anything. With each experiment, mammals push into corners of the Earth once unreachable. The quirky twist is that this was also an age of giants. Some sloths grew as large as elephants, armadillos swelled to the size of cars, and towering flightless birds dominated open plains. For a time, mammals claimed scale as boldly as the dinosaurs had, though many of these giants would later vanish. Scientists still debate whether mammals rose primarily because the dinosaurs were gone, or because they already carried the seeds of success. Were they simply opportunists filling empty roles, or were their warm-blooded bodies, sharp senses, and social care destined to carry them forward? The fossil record cannot give a single answer, but the result is clear. Mammals took hold of the Earth. From your vantage point, you see a planet now filled with fur, sound, and motion. The age of mammals has begun, and with it the lineages that will one day lead to humans, standing under the same stars you see tonight. You drift into warm Paleogene forests, thick with green canopies and echoing with life. By now, mammals of every shape wander the Earth. Small grazers nibble on shoots, great herbivores stir the undergrowth, predators stalk silently. Yet high above, in the branches, a new experiment is underway. Here, the primates begin their climb. They are small at first, no larger than squirrels, with soft fur and curious eyes. Their hands and feet are different. Fingers tipped with nails instead of claws, able to grasp branches with delicate precision. Their eyes shift forward, granting sharper depth perception. Each leap from branch to branch demands accurate judgment, and with these new tools they master the three-dimensional puzzle of the forest. The quirky truth is that fruit may have been the spark. Flowering plants offered sweet rewards for dispersing seeds, and primates eagerly took the bait. Their keen eyesight and nimble hands made them perfect fruit collectors, pulling them deeper into the treetops. Insects, too, were abundant, giving early primates a balanced diet that fueled their active lives. Scientists still wonder which came first. Did the forest environment shape primates? Or did primates reshape the forest by carrying seeds across wide ranges? Perhaps it was both, a partnership between trees and climbers that enriched entire ecosystems. Fossils like Odeapus and Notharctus offer glimpses of these early experiments: long fingers, flexible spines, and skulls built for both smell and sight. From your vantage point you hover among branches alive with motion. Groups of primates leap and chatter, grooming one another, warning of predators below. Their lives are not solitary but social, bound by touch, sound, and curiosity. In their agility and cooperation, you see the faint outlines of futures that will one day walk upright and speak. As ages roll forward, primates diversify into an array of shapes and strategies. Some grow larger, swinging boldly with long arms through the treetops, while others remain small, darting nervously along the branches at night. Social bonds deepen. Grooming becomes a ritual of trust, and vocal calls turn into complex signals. Life among the trees rewards not only agility but memory, cooperation, and awareness. In the Americas, monkeys evolve prehensile tails, gripping branches like a fifth limb. This quirky innovation gives them a freedom unmatched, letting them dangle, reach, and balance with ease. Meanwhile, in Africa and Asia, other primates experiment differently. Some become powerful leapers, others develop strong jaws to crush tough fruits, and still others expand their brains, edging toward greater intelligence. Scientists still debate what drove these shifts. Was it the abundance of fruit, pushing primates to refine their vision and coordination? Or was it the complexity of social life, where outsmarting rivals and keeping allies required sharper minds? Fossils show skulls with expanding brain cases and skeletons adapted for climbing, but the story behind those bones remains partly hidden. From your vantage point, the canopy glows with movement and sound. Primate groups chase, play, and nurture one another under shifting sunlight. Each interaction lays foundations for behaviors that will echo through time: teamwork, rivalry, curiosity, care. These creatures are no longer just animals in trees, they are minds in motion, practicing skills that will one day shape fire, language, and culture. And as you watch them leap and cling, you realize you are seeing more than survival. You're seeing the early sketches of humanity itself, drawn in fur and eyes, testing out what it means to think, to share, and to dream. You drift into Africa a few million years ago, where dense forests begin to give way to open savannas. Tall grasses sway under a fierce sun, scattered trees offer islands of shade, and herds of grazing animals move restlessly across the plains. It is here, on this shifting stage, that some primates step into a new role. They rise onto two legs, their silhouettes outlined against the horizon. These are the early humans. At first, they are not so different from their ape cousins. Their arms remain long, their faces forward thrusting, their bodies lean. But their hips and spines reveal something profound: bipedalism. Walking upright frees their hands for carrying food, crafting tools, or holding infants. Standing tall lets them scan the horizon for predators and prey alike. Each step they take is awkward compared to yours, but revolutionary compared to all who came before. The quirky detail is in their tools. At riverbanks they strike stones together, chipping off flakes sharper than teeth. With these simple blades, they cut meat from carcasses, scrape hides, and crack bones for rich marrow. A few chips of rock become the earliest technology, marking the dawn of human ingenuity. Scientists still debate why bipedalism evolved in the first place. Was it to move efficiently across wide grasslands as forests retreated? Was it to stay cooler under the blazing sun by exposing less surface area? Or was it simply to free hands for carrying supplies and offspring? Fossils like Australopithecus afarensis, known as Lucy, offer tantalizing clues, but the full reason remains an open question. From your vantage point, you see small bands of these early humans gathering at the edges of waterholes. They scavenge meat left by lions, work together to chase vultures away and share what little they claim. Their survival is fragile, but their cooperation hints at the beginnings of something greater: society. Over time, these early humans grow bolder. They no longer simply scavenge, but begin to shape their own opportunities. Stones are struck with greater care, creating hand axes that fit snugly in the palm, their edges sharp and symmetrical. These tools mark a leap in thought, planning, foresight, and even a sense of design. Technology is no longer an accident, it is intention. Fire follows, first captured from wild blazes sparked by lightning, later tended and carried carefully from place to place. Around the flames, nights become safer, predators wary of the glow. Food is cooked, making it easier to chew and digest, unlocking new energy. The campfire becomes more than warmth. It becomes a gathering point where gestures and sounds grow into shared meaning. The quirky twist is in the brains of these early humans. Fossils reveal skulls swelling in size, making room for minds capable of memory, problem-solving, and imagination. Yet larger brains also mean longer childhoods, requiring extended care. Families and groups adjust, investing more in each child's growth. Survival now depends not only on muscle or teeth, but on teaching, sharing, and remembering. Scientists still debate when language truly began. Did it start as warning calls on the savannah, cries for danger carried on the wind? Or did it emerge around firelight, playful mimicry and rhythm slowly becoming structured speech? The stones and bones cannot tell us directly, but the complexity of tools and social life suggests voices were already carrying more than simple cries. From above, you see these humans walking together across golden grass, their shadows stretching long in the setting sun. Fragile though they are, they hold something unique: imagination. With every tool chipped, every fire tended, every shared glance, they step closer to becoming storytellers, creatures who will one day ask where they came from, and tell tales under stars. You drift forward once more, and the early humans you watched on the savannah evolve into Homo sapiens, beings with larger brains, nimble hands, and restless curiosity. They no longer just survive on the margins, they begin to shape the world itself. Imagine them spreading outward from Africa in small bands. They follow rivers, coastlines, and valleys, carrying fire with them like a travelling sun. On cave walls in Europe they paint animals in sweeping ochre lines, shadows that echo with imagination. Across Asia, they craft bows to hunt with precision. In the Americas, they stalk mammoths in coordinated groups, their strategies as much mental as physical. Step by step, their presence extends to every continent. The quirky fact is how quickly this expansion unfolded in geological time. Within tens of thousands of years, a blink compared to the reign of trilobites or dinosaurs, humans circled the globe. They adapted to deserts and tundras, jungles and ice, inventing clothing and shelters suited to each place. No other mammal of their size spread so widely, so fast. Scientists still debate what gave humans this decisive edge. Was it the complexity of their language, allowing them to plan hunts and share ideas? Was it their social bonds, built on trust and cooperation? Or was it sheer adaptability, the knack for turning stone, bone, or wood into tools for every challenge? Likely, it was all of these woven together. From above, you see campfires glowing at night across continents, tiny points of light flickering like stars on Earth's surface. Each fire is a hub of warmth, food, and story, binding people together. The planet is no longer a backdrop for evolution alone. It has become a canvas for human ambition. As centuries pass, those scattered fires grow into villages, and villages into cities. People cultivate grains, herd animals, and bend rivers to their will. Forests are cleared for fields, stones are stacked into monuments, and trade routes stretch across mountains and seas. The earth, once sculpted only by wind, water, and tectonic force, now carries the unmistakable mark of human hands. The quirky twist is how swiftly this transformation occurs. In just a few thousand years, barely the blink of an eye on the geological clock, humans shift from foragers to farmers, from wanderers to builders of empires. They invent writing to preserve memory, music to stir emotion, myths to explain the cosmos. From pyramids to temples, from sailing ships to roads that cross continents, they weave the planet into a connected web. Scientists still debate whether this era marks a new epoch, the Anthropocene. Human activity has altered climate, redirected rivers, reshaped coastlines, and even left chemical fingerprints that will endure in rocks for millions of years. Future geologists may read layers of plastic, steel, and concrete the way you read ancient fossils of trilobites and ferns. From your vantage point in the present, you see continents glowing at night, networks of light like constellations etched onto the ground. The oceans churn with ships, skies hum with aircraft, and satellites circle above. Humanity has become a planetary force shaping not only its own survival, but the destiny of Earth itself. And as you listen to this story, you realize that you are part of it. Every heartbeat carries the legacy of primordial seas, every breath the gift of ancient microbes, every thought the echo of curious primates gazing at the sky. The long history of life on Earth has led, step by fragile step, to you, here, now, resting under the same stars. You settle now beside a fire flickering in the deep night of prehistory. The stars stretch above you, the the same constellations that once guided wandering herds and restless hunters. Around the flames sit your ancestors, their faces lit with amber light, their voices low but insistent. Fire is no longer a gift borrowed from lightning. It is tended, nurtured, carried from camp to camp. With fire, the cold is pushed back, the darkness softened, and new possibilities begin to unfold. Imagine how it feels to gather at this hearth. Sparks crackle, wood hisses, smoke curls into the air. The heat not only warms bodies but transforms food, making it softer, safer, more nourishing. Meat roasted over flames delivers energy that fuels larger brains, while roots and grains become edible in ways they never were before. Around the fire, survival turns into culture. But there is more than cooking here. In the shifting glow, words are born. At first, they are simple cries, warnings and calls, but now they begin to stretch into patterns, shared names for places, rhythms for stories, playful imitations of animal calls. You hear a grandmother shaping a tale with gestures and sounds, children leaning in, their eyes wide. These gatherings are the seedbeds of memory. The quirky fact is that language may have first blossomed in these settings not out of necessity but out of play. The fire offered safety, freeing minds to experiment with sound and symbol. Singing, chanting, joking. These became more than pastimes. They became the glue that bound communities tighter than claws or teeth ever could. Scientists still debate the timeline of speech. Did complex language arise suddenly with a genetic mutation, or did it grow slowly over hundreds of thousands of years, one phrase at a time? Fossils cannot capture spoken words, leaving us to trace clues in skull shapes, in the hyoid bone, in ancient tools. The truth remains elusive, but the impact is clear. Language changed everything. From your vantage point, you watch as words and fire spiral together, two inventions shaping human destiny. The flames keep predators away, but the stories carry time itself, linking past to future. Each word spoken is a bridge, and each spark tossed skyward is a reminder that imagination has caught fire. You notice how the circle widens as the seasons pass. A traveller returns from a river you have never seen, carrying a new way to lash branches together for shelter, and the trick spreads through the camp with a handful of words and a demonstration by firelight. A mother hums a soothing pattern while rocking a child, and the tune is borrowed by another family the next night, revised with a playful twist. Gossip flows like a warm current. Who found berries in the ravine, who saw tracks near the waterhole, who gave the first slice of marrow to an elder. What seems like idle talk is actually a braided rope of coordination, trust, and warning, strong enough to bind dozens of people who are not blood relatives. You sit inside this rope and feel how it bears weight. Even your sense of time stretches and settles under the spell of shared words. Days stop being only sunrise and sunset. They become stories in sequence. The morning of the long chase, the afternoon when thunder shook the plains, the night the stranger arrived. Memory, once scattered like seeds in the wind, now gathers into constellations you can navigate. People begin to organize hunts with plans that reach beyond the next bend in the trail. They promise to meet tomorrow at the termite mound, to circle the herd from two sides, to signal with a cry that means now. Plans, promises, signals, these are the first architecture of futures built from sound. There is a mainstream fact here that scholars return to again and again. Controlling fire changed human biology and social life together. Cooked food softens and sterilizes, releasing more calories with less chewing, likely supporting the rise of larger, more energy-hungry brains. Evenings by the hearth extend waking hours into darkness, creating a new social window, what some researchers call the campfire niche, where teaching, storytelling, tool repair and song can unfold without fear of predators' eyes, glittering just beyond the circle of light. In this warmth, culture thickens like a stew left to simmer. And the quirky tidbit is this: smoke itself becomes an ally. Mosquitoes and biting flies retreat from it. Meat hung above the embers takes on a new flavour and resists rotting. Ash mixed with water makes a simple paste to clean teeth, and charcoal smeared on skin disguises scent during a hunt. Even the soot on your hands becomes a tool for drawing shapes on stone. Hands splayed, animals sketched from memory, dots counting the moons since the rains. The fire does not just cook, it writes. Still, scientists wonder whether language began as a sudden bloom, a genetic spark that rewired throats and brains at once, or as a long, slow drift from gesture to voice, from a handful of calls to a grammar of astonishing power. Some point to changes in the throat and hyoid bone that would allow a wider range of sounds. Others trace the puzzle through genes that influence speech and learning, noting how language is not lodged in a single spot but woven through networks that link breath, memory, rhythm, and social attention. The answer remains partly in shadow, like a figure at the edge of the firelight whose features you can sense but not entirely see. Night after night, you feel how rhythm becomes a bridge. Hands clap softly, feet tap dust, voices rise and fall together. Song helps groups move in unison on long walks and keeps courage steady in the dark. Lullabies tame fear in the smallest children. Chant gives hunters a steady pace. A rising call gathers scattered foragers back toward camp. These are not performances for an audience. They are tools for aligning hearts and steps. The air above the embers learns your patterns and throws them back to you, warmed and steady. You also learn how a single new word can enlarge the world. Someone coins a name for a distant grove, and suddenly that place becomes easier to hold in the mind, to discuss, to plan for. A sound pattern turns a patch of land into a destination shared by many. In the same way, names for kin, mother's sister, mother's brother, the child of my cousin, let care flow along reliable channels. With words, obligations can be remembered and promises stored. Society is no longer only teeth bared or gifts exchanged. It is a library of commitments carried in the breath of each person. By firelight, knowledge becomes portable. A teenager learns to twist sinew into chord and repeats the steps out loud, keeping the sequence from slipping away. An elder recounts which plants soothe a fever and which leaves must never be brewed, and the listeners answer with small murmurs that mean "I hear, I know, go on." A hunt leader maps the valley in the ashes with a stick, ridge, stream, thicket, and the group adds details until the dust is full of paths like a memory made visible. When the wind scatters the drawing, the map remains in the minds that shared it, ready to be conjured back by a few well-placed words. Fire also changes the horizon of fear. Predators keep a respectful distance from the glow and crackle. Eyes can rest longer, shoulders loosen. In that safety, people dare to think about animals not only as threats or food, but as teachers of movement, wind, and weather. Imitation becomes instruction. You practice the gait of antelope, the tilt of a vulture's wing, the tight circle of a jackal's patrol. Mimicry folds into play, and play folds back into skill. Once again, sound is there, shaping practice into memory. A whistle for wind, a click for the sudden turn, a low hum for patience. You may notice how the sky enters the story here too. Even with the fire burning low, stars hold their places and humans begin to name them. A line of lights becomes a hunter, a cluster becomes a nest. Stories pin the seasons to the heavens. When that bright wanderer returns to the western sky, the fish will come up river. When the long curve of stars leans low, the grasses will seed. Cosmology is not yet a doctrine. It is a weather report wrapped in myth, a calendar sung into being. Words anchor the year, and with the passing years camps speak to camps. A visitor brings a new knot for binding a spearhead, another brings a tale of a drought far to the south. A ritual gesture from strangers is first puzzling, then adopted because it feels right at the moment when the first fruit is cut and shared. Trade begins, ochre for shell, honey for stone, songs for songs. A path through the hills becomes a chorus of markers, this stand of trees where we rest, that curve of cliff where the echo repeats twice, the creek that laughs like a child. Routes become braided with story so that even those who travel them for the first time feel halfway at home. Language, you realize, is not only in the mouth, it is in the gaze that checks whether a friend understands, in the hand that sketches a curve in the air, in the pause that lets a meaning breathe before it lands. The fire teaches pacing. Too fast and a warning tangles into noise, too slow and the group's attention drifts like smoke. The best speakers learn to ride the inhale of the circle, to let suspense simmer, to tilt a phrase so that laughter spills exactly when the fear is highest and needs release. Around such voices, danger can be faced without panic, and success can be celebrated without pride cutting the bonds. There is a deeper shift, almost invisible as it happens. Minds begin to think about other minds. You guess what a companion will do from where his eyes rest. You predict whether a plan will hold by listening to how a voice tightens on a key word. Teaching improves because the teacher can sense the moment the learner loses the thread. Trust improves because promises are wrapped not only in words but in the tone that carries them. The circle grows smarter because each person is paying attention, not just to the world, but to the ways others carry the world within. You see how language and fire together make time cooperative. It becomes possible to stage complex hunts that unfold over hours, with roles that must fit together like teeth in a gear. It becomes possible to innovate tools in steps, carve, heat, temper, test, without losing the sequence. It becomes possible to keep law without writing. The story of a quarrel told to elders, the terms of peace spoken before witnesses, the memory of fairness carried by those who care to remember. In the glow, justice is a narrative contract, fragile but real. The circle, for all its warmth, is honest about its limits. Sometimes the firewood is wet and smokes too much. Sometimes the tale runs thin. Sometimes a joke stings when it should have soothed. Even so, people adjust. A new song is tried, a silence is honoured, a wrong is mended with an extra share of roasted tubers. The living grammar of the camp is not perfect, but it is self-correcting. In this way, language is not a monument, it is a garden weeded nightly. And you can't help but wonder what those first full stories sounded like. Were they precise, like hunting diagrams sung in code? Or were they wild and generous, spilling beyond facts into dreams where rivers speak and stars argue? Scientists still wonder whether narrative began mainly as practical memory or as imaginative play that later proved useful. The distinction might be false. In humans, usefulness and wonder clasp the same hand. In the end, the fire burns low and the night grows cool. One by one, the voices fall quiet. Embers keep their red eyes on the sleeping circle, and ash folds carefully over the last flickers to save a coal for morning. In the hush, words do their strangest work. They keep watch inside dreams. You will wake with a plan you did not know you were making, with a path already half walked in imagination, with a phrase on your tongue that will open a stranger's face like a door. By then the sun will be lifting, and someone will be stirring the coals, and another day of shared thought will begin, carrying humanity a little farther from the dark and a little deeper into its own light. You drift forward through time, past countless nights of firelight and wandering footsteps, until you notice something strange. Some groups no longer move. They stay near rivers and valleys, clearing brush, planting seeds, and watching the earth respond. This is the dawn of agriculture, when humans begin to tether themselves to land. Imagine the first hesitant steps. Someone scatters leftover seeds near a campsite and returns months later to find shoots rising from the soil. A clever mind wonders if this was no accident, and the experiment begins. Hands that once pulled roots from wild ground now guide their growth. Grain, lentils, peas. These humble plants become allies, offering food more predictable than the chase of antelope or the search for honey. Settlements bloom near fertile rivers, the Nile, the Tigris, the Indus, the Yellow River. With each harvest, people build granaries, shape clay pots, and discover that food can be stored against the teeth of famine. Where once survival depended on wandering luck, now it depends on planning, calendars, and rituals tied to the rhythms of soil and sky. The quirky fact is that agriculture did not arise only once. It appeared independently in many parts of the world. Wheat in the Middle East, rice in Asia, maize in the Americas, sorghum in Africa. Each community turned its local plants into partners, reshaping landscapes in ways both ingenious and irreversible. The earth itself becomes a kind of canvas, inscribed with furrows, terraces, and irrigation channels. But scientists still debate whether this shift was truly progress. Did farming free humans from hunger, or did it bind them into harder labour, longer hours, and crowded villages ripe for disease? Skeletons from early farmers often show more wear, shorter stature, and weaker health than those of their foraging ancestors. Perhaps agriculture was not a clear step up, but a trade, security for freedom, abundance for mobility. The argument lingers like the echo of flint striking against stone. From your vantage point, you see the transformation ripple outward. Campsites turn to villages. Villages grow into towns. The pulse of humanity now beats not in scattered footsteps across continents, but in clustered fields, where rows of green stretch toward horizons. The age of hunters and gatherers has not ended completely, but a new path is opening, one that will reshape not just diets, but destinies. You walk among these early villages and notice how agriculture reshapes more than just the soil. It reshapes society itself. Suddenly there is surplus. Grain stored in baskets, seeds waiting for next season. Surplus means choice. Who holds it? Who guards it? Who distributes it? Leaders emerge, elders hold more sway, and hierarchies begin to sprout alongside the crops. A world once shaped by equality at the fire now bends toward new balances of power. Homes become sturdier, pressed from mud brick or woven from reeds. Fences rise, not only to keep animals in, but also to mark what is mine versus yours. Property becomes an idea as strong as stone. People invest years of labour in a single patch of ground, tying identity to place. For the first time, your home is not a circle of firelight that shifts with the seasons. It is a wall, a roof, a plot of land rooted like the trees around it. Livestock join the story, bleating and grunting as they are corralled near human homes. Goats, sheep, cattle, pigs, once wild, now bent into companions and resources. Milk flows into clay pots, hides are tanned for warmth, and animals become both helpers and wealth. Yet with them come fleas, diseases, and new dangers. Living so close to animals reshapes human biology, leaving genetic signatures still carried in your blood today. The quirky twist is that agriculture also births new timekeepers. No longer is the year marked only by stars or rains. Now there are sowing days, weeding days, harvest festivals. Calendars are carved into bone and stone, rhythms tied to the tilt of earth and the swelling of rivers. These rhythms bring music, ritual, and myth. Gods of fertility and sky rise in people's minds, reflecting the new pact between humanity and the soil. Scientists still wonder whether this shift was inevitable. Did changing climates push humans to farm, or did farming arise from curiosity and convenience? Was it desperation after game grew scarce, or ambition to control more of nature's gifts? Archaeological sites show both continuity and rupture. Villages abandoned, fields reclaimed by weeds, then resettled centuries later. Farming was not a smooth ascent, but a series of trials, failures, and rediscoveries. From your vantage point, you see the long arc beginning. Agriculture ties humans together in larger groups, feeds more mouths, and sets the stage for writing, cities, and empires. But it also binds people to labour, hierarchy, and the cycles of flood and drought. As you watch the first golden grains sift through a farmer's fingers, you sense both promise and burden. The soil holds life, but it also holds humanity fast. You wander onward into the age where villages swell into cities. The murmur of fields and flocks is now joined by the clang of bronze, the scratch of reeds on clay, the rumble of markets alive with barter. Civilizations rise along the rivers, each carving its mark into history. Picture the Nile, swollen with yearly floods that leave behind rich black silt. Farmers harvest more grain than their families can eat, feeding not only themselves but also scribes, artisans, and priests. Temples rise like mountains of stone, their walls etched with symbols that whisper of gods, pharaohs, and the eternal cycle of life and death. Writing, born from tallies of grain and taxes, grows into poetry and myth. With symbols, memory takes root beyond the human tongue, fixed into clay and papyrus. Elsewhere, the Tigris and Euphrates cradle Mesopotamia. Cities like Ur and Babylon hum with activity. Ziggurats thrust upward, stairways for mortals to approach the divine. Law codes are chiselled in stone, declaring fairness, or at least order, in disputes over cattle, land, or honour. You stroll through narrow alleys, hearing the din of merchants haggling, the laughter of children, the prayers rising at dusk. Across the Indus Valley, streets are laid out with surprising precision. Drains carrying water away, houses built to a shared rhythm. In China, villages gather under dynasties that trace their power through both myth and metal, weaving silk and casting bronze bells that echo across time. Civilizations flourish not in one place but in many, each answering the same riddle in different tongues. How do you gather thousands of people into one living system without letting it fall apart? The quirky tidbit is that beer may have played a starring role here. Some archaeologists argue that grain was first cultivated not just for bread but for brewing. Fermented drink became a communal bond, a safer alternative to questionable water and a centerpiece of ritual. In clay cups lifted at festivals, you glimpse how necessity and joy mingled at the roots of civilization. Scientists still puzzle over why these first cities rose nearly simultaneously in different regions. Was it simply rivers and fertile land? Or was there something about human culture itself, an itch to build, to gather, to create monuments that outlast generations? Were humans destined for towers and palaces, or could history have unfolded another way? The answers ripple like shadows across stone walls. From your perspective, you see that civilizations are not just about bricks and harvests, they're about shared imagination. A people believes in a god-king, and pyramids rise. A people believes in fairness, and courts convene. A people believes in the strength of a city, and its walls stand firm against the storms. Civilization is not only matter, it is mind, written on the canvas of earth and sky. You step deeper into the bustle of these early cities and feel how every corner reveals a new invention. Metalworkers hammer copper and tin into bronze, sharper and tougher than stone. Farmers guide water with canals, shaping rivers into obedient veins. Traders lead caravans loaded with lapis, ivory and spices, weaving webs that connect deserts, forests and seas. The idea of distance shrinks as goods and stories travel faster than footsteps alone could carry them. Writing blossoms beyond account ledgers. Cuneiform and hieroglyphs evolve into epics, tales of heroes who fight monsters, of floods that cleanse the world, of gods who argue like families. These stories are not idle fantasies. They teach morals, encode laws, and give communities shared roots. When someone recites the Epic of Gilgamesh, listeners hear not just entertainment, but a mirror of human longing and mortality. The written word outlives its speaker, carrying memory into centuries the original storyteller will never see. Music and art echo across stone walls, harps pluck in banquet halls, drums thrum in processions, pigments daub frescoes of hunting, dancing, and worship. You watch as human creativity bursts beyond survival into beauty, expressing not just what is needed, but what is dreamed. Civilization feeds imagination, and imagination in turn feeds civilization, as symbols and songs cement unity in ways no law alone could achieve. Of course, not all is harmony. Alongside temples and palaces rise fortifications. Spears and chariots thunder through plains. The very surplus that feeds a people also tempts their neighbours. Empires swell and clash. Scribes record victories and defeats, and captives are marched through city gates. The grandeur of civilization is braided with its violence, each feeding the other. The quirky observation is that even plumbing becomes political. In some ancient cities, clay pipes and drains brought water and carried waste away, an innovation centuries ahead of its time. Yet access to these comforts often marked status. The elite bathed while labourers hauled jars from wells. Technology mirrored hierarchy, reminding you that progress is rarely shared equally. Scientists still debate what made some civilizations endure while others crumbled. Why did the Mayas' great cities fade into jungle silence? Why did Rome's grandeur collapse into fragmented kingdoms? Was it climate, overreach, invasion, or the slow grinding of inequality? The ruins pose questions more haunting than answers, leaving you to imagine footsteps echoing in empty streets. As you leave these ancient avenues, you sense how civilization itself is a living organism. It grows, adapts, resists, and sometimes collapses, only to seed the next. In the rise of cities, You glimpse humanity learning to shape not only tools and land, but time and destiny. The seeds sown in these first civilizations will ripple forward, building the world you know today. You wander now into an age where curiosity itself becomes a tool sharper than bronze. The whispers of myth and ritual still fill the air, but alongside them another voice rises, one that asks, why? Why do the stars move as they do? Why does illness strike? Why does the apple fall rather than float? This is the age where science, philosophy, and exploration begin to unlock the cosmos. Picture a Greek thinker lying on the sand, mapping constellations with a stick. He proposes that Earth is not flat but a sphere, that the sun may be far larger than imagined. Another measures shadows in distant cities and calculates Earth's circumference with astonishing accuracy. In faraway China, scholars chart the heavens, recording supernovae and comets, laying the groundwork for centuries of astronomy. In India, mathematicians develop zero, a concept as invisible as air but as powerful as fire. Knowledge begins to break free from temples and kings, carried in scrolls and debates, tested against observation rather than decree. Ships venture outward, their sails filled with ambition as much as wind. Phoenicians hug coasts, Polynesians ride waves guided by stars. Chinese fleets carry silk and porcelain across oceans. Exploration stitches the world tighter, and every voyage brings back not just goods but new questions. The world is no longer bound by the horizon, it grows with every returning sail. The quirky fact is that some of the first scientists were stargazers who mixed observation with myth, predicting eclipses with mathematics while still seeing dragons devouring the moon. The line between magic and science was porous, yet the methods, measurement, repetition, record-keeping, were seeds of modern inquiry. Even alchemy, with its dreams of gold and immortality, laid foundations for chemistry by cataloguing substances and reactions. Scientists still wonder what made certain cultures take the leap from myth to method. Was it chance genius, individuals like Aristotle, Hypatia, or Alhazen pushing the limits of thought? Or was it the result of accumulated surplus and stability that freed minds to explore? The question lingers, is science inevitable wherever humans settle, or a fragile flame that could have guttered out under different winds? From your vantage, you watch knowledge accumulate like sediment, each generation layering new insight upon the last. Libraries swell with scrolls, universities hum with debate, and experiments bubble in hidden workshops. The cosmos is no longer only a canvas of gods, but a puzzle of forces waiting to be solved. Humanity, once huddled at firesides telling stories, now dares to measure the fire of stars themselves. You drift further, watching as the rhythm of discovery accelerates. Glass lenses sharpen human sight, turning distant planets into places with phases, moons, and storms. Telescopes stretch eyes toward infinity, while microscopes reveal whole kingdoms bustling within a drop of water. The scale of the universe expands in both directions, galaxies above, microbes below, reminding you how small and how vast your place truly is. In Renaissance workshops, thinkers challenge dogma. Copernicus quietly repositions Earth, no longer the universe's anchor, but just another planet. Galileo dares to point his telescope skyward and finds moons circling Jupiter, proof that not all revolves around humankind. Newton watches an apple fall and shapes laws that tether the same force to falling fruit and orbiting planets. Knowledge begins to weave together, a net strong enough to catch both cannonballs and comets. Exploration joins science in reshaping the world. Compass and sextant guide ships across oceans, linking continents in webs of trade, migration, and conquest. New foods, potatoes, tomatoes, maize, chocolate, cross oceans, altering diets and economies. Maps swell with coastlines, dotted with names in dozens of languages, a patchwork of curiosity and ambition. The planet itself becomes a single stage for humanity's restless play. The quirky tidbit is that coffeehouses became hotbeds of science. In 17th century Europe, scholars, merchants, and poets gathered over steaming cups, trading news and debating ideas. The caffeine sharpened minds while the communal tables blurred class lines, making these noisy rooms unlikely laboratories of progress. Some even called them penny universities. Scientists still wonder how different the trajectory of discovery might have been if certain scrolls had not burned, if voyages had turned back, if thinkers had been silenced. Was progress inevitable, or did it hinge on fragile chains of chance? Could a different civilization have reached the stars first? The counterfactuals tease the imagination, reminding you how precarious knowledge can be. From your vantage point, the world is alive with instruments, equations, and bold dreams. Humanity is no longer content to huddle beneath the heavens. It measures them, predicts them, and begins to harness their power. Each new insight lifts a veil, and yet each answer births new questions. You sense the paradox at the heart of science. The more you know, the greater the mystery grows. You drift now toward horizons not yet written, where history and future mingle in the same breath. The Anthropocene stretches beneath your feet, an epoch where humans themselves shape the planet as powerfully as ice ages and asteroid strikes once did. But you sense that the story does not end here. It opens into questions that no one yet knows how to answer. Imagine the cities of today glowing like constellations on the darkened Earth. Highways thread between them like artificial rivers, satellites orbit above like restless moons. Humanity has become a geological force, moving more rock and soil than rivers, altering the chemistry of oceans and skies. Yet within that vast influence is a fragile uncertainty. Will these powers be wielded with care, or will they fracture the very foundation that supports life? Climate change breathes through every corner of this chapter. Glaciers shrink, seas climb, storms grow fierce. You feel the tremor of urgency in debates that rage from laboratories to parliaments. Technology offers promises: renewable energy, carbon capture, new forms of agriculture, but politics and habit weigh heavy. Scientists chart the data with precision, yet the choices lie in human hands. Still, the quirky detail is that even as satellites beam warnings of warming seas, they also capture dazzling images of auroras, swirling hurricanes, and galaxies far beyond. The very tools built to understand crisis also gift humanity with beauty. You cannot help but smile at the irony. Instruments that track melting ice also reveal the poetry of a pale blue dot floating in infinity. Scientists still wonder whether the Anthropocene will be remembered as a brief stumble or the beginning of a long new age. Will humanity learn to live within planetary limits, or will its reach outpace its wisdom? The question hovers like a comet, trailing possibilities too many to chart. From your vantage, the horizon splits in two. One path shows fields buzzing with sustainable harvests, cities glowing with clean energy, societies learning to share. Another path shows deserts spreading, oceans acidifying, species fading into memory. Which future unfolds depends not on distant stars but on choices made in meetings, classrooms and homes, choices small as a light switch or vast as a treaty. You lean closer to the unfolding years and notice how humanity reaches not only inward, to mend its planet, but outward, toward the stars. Rockets flare into the sky, carrying satellites, probes, and people beyond the atmosphere. The moon, once a distant lamp, now bears the prints of human boots. Mars beckons, red and silent, while telescopes reveal exoplanets circling suns far away. Space is no longer just myth, it is destination. At the same time, machines of thought hum quietly in servers and screens. Artificial intelligence learns patterns from oceans of data, promising to help solve problems from climate modelling to medicine. Yet with each advance comes unease. How much control do humans keep over tools that begin to imitate their own minds? The future feels like a balancing act, poised between empowerment and peril. And there is biology too, gene editing, vaccines, synthetic life. You imagine the quirky possibility that one day bananas might glow in the dark or coral might be engineered to resist heat. Playful or profound, these experiments reveal humanity's growing role as not just a species within nature, but as nature's tinkerer. Whether that tinkering heals or harms is still unfolding. Scientists still wonder what the long arc of this story will be. Will humanity spread to other planets, carrying Earth's legacy among the stars? Or will it turn inward, learning humility and balance on the fragile world that birthed it? Will civilizations thousands of years from now look back on this era as a moment of awakening or as a cautionary tale of overreach? No fossil, no monument, no archive can yet answer. You stand at this edge with both awe and unease. Humanity has walked from primordial soup to satellites, from whispered stories by fire to data streamed across continents in an instant. The thread of life has stretched across 4 billion years to place you here, listening, wondering, drifting into sleep. The story is not finished. It never is. But in the hush between breaths, you can feel its pulse, steady and insistent, promising more chapters still to come. As the story slows, you let the centuries soften into whispers. The thunder of dinosaurs, the rustle of forests, the crackle of human firelight, all of it drifts into the distance, like echoes fading across a valley. The earth beneath you feels steady, breathing in rhythms older than memory. You sense how small each moment is against the canvas of billions of years, yet how precious, how luminous each one becomes when held gently. You picture oceans lapping quietly against ancient shores, forests swaying in calm winds, and stars overhead that have watched every stage of this journey. The world is quieter now, not empty but at peace, wrapped in the same silence that carried life forward between great dramas. In this stillness, your own breathing finds its pace, slower, deeper, easier. The quirky truth is that even as you drift towards sleep, your body carries stardust in its cells and oceans in its blood. You're not apart from the story. You are the story, written in molecules forged by ancient stars, passed along by unbroken chains of life. Scientists still debate what the future will bring. Will humans continue to shape Earth gently, or test its patience with restless ambition? No one knows for sure. But for tonight, those questions can rest. The story pauses here, enough to remind you that the ground beneath you is steady, and the sky above you endless. So you let your eyes grow heavy, your thoughts drift slower, until the timeline of Earth itself becomes a soft backdrop to your dreams. The rise and fall of ages dissolves into quiet, and what remains is simple: breath, warmth, and rest. Thank you for spending this evening with Era of Earth. Sleep well, rest deeply, and may tomorrow greet you with peace. Good night.